As we go through today, if you have any questions, send them in using the question and answer interface in Zoom, and I will do my best to answer them. Depending on the question, I may punt it until the end of the presentation. But depending on what it is, I'll try to answer it as we go through. So today we are talking about Nebula. Nebula is our cloud managed networking platform. So Nebula is used or can be used to manage our access points, our switches, and our security appliances. Everything is hosted in the cloud through Amazon AWS. So there's nothing that you need to worry about setting up or running or keeping on top of. One of the nice things about Nebula is you can start setting up a network and configuring things before you even select your final products that you're going to use for the deployment. And you can do the full configuration without even needing to remove the devices from the boxes. Once you've gotten the hardware, you just need to add the devices to Nebula. You do that by typing in the MAC and serial number or scanning a QR code that can be found on the outside of the box or on the belly label of the device itself. So you simply scan it in, assign it, and as soon as it connects to power and internet, it will automatically download the configuration that you've given it through the cloud. So in order to use Nebula, there is nothing else you need to buy. The Nebula agent is built into our hardware itself. So there's no additional boxes you need to buy, no software that needs to be run, no servers that need to be set up. So Nebula has been designed, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in a few minutes here, but it's designed to basically help speed things up for you and get you up and running in just a few minutes. As far as basic settings go, if you just need a typical basic network, some switching, a couple VLANs, setting up an access points with a couple different SSIDs, just takes a couple of minutes to do through the Nebula interface. With Nebula, when you want to manage your customers, you want to manage your hardware, you simply go to our website, nebula.zyxel.com, and that's all you need to do. That takes you to what we call the Nebula Control Center, or NCC, and that's where all configuration, firmware updates, remote access is all done through that. So you don't need to worry about setting up different passwords and user accounts for different customer sites. You don't need to be worrying about setting up VPN connections to get onto the customer site. Everything is done through that web interface. So Nebula has been designed from the ground up with the idea that you probably have many customers. Some of those customers may have multiple locations or different networks that need to be set up. So Nebula has been designed from the get-go back in 2016 to be able to basically be optimized for that. We make it really easy for you to check on the status of your customers' networks. We make it really easy to jump from customer to customer or site to site so you can keep up on things there. We also provide visibility with various reports you can see in the cloud, so you can see what's been going on your wireless network, what's been going on with your firewall, things like that. Depending on the version of Nebula that you're using, we store up to 12 months worth of log informations and history for you to view. So we make it really easy to provide guest access. Captive Portal is built into our access points themselves. So even if you aren't using one of our security gateways, if you're using our access points, you can still provide Captive Portal functionality. And we give you a lot of flexibility with how those captive portals work. You can have people log in with a username and password. You can have people simply agree to a terms of service before they get access to the guest network. You can have people register their own username and passwords to get on. We can use Facebook to allow people to get on. So a lot of flexibility there. Whether you're talking about providing guest access at a retail location or a coffee shop, or whether we're talking about providing guest access to customers or vendors who are visiting an office building. The captive portal itself highly customizable. We give you some basic customization you can do in the Nebula interface. If you need more than that, we give you the HTML and CSS files that you can download and edit to your heart's content. You can also point people to your own website, and we give you the code that you need to integrate into that website so it can talk to our Nebula and know when to authorize the user itself. All updates, whether we're talking configuration updates or firmware updates, are done over the air. So again, you don't need to access the physical device to update that firmware or make a configuration change. You simply log into that Nebula interface, do everything through there. When it comes to firmware updates, we allow you to schedule those. So you can schedule, the time and place for each of your customers as to when those firmware upgrades are going to take place. So generally, when it comes to providing higher end security, people tend to use Radius or Active Directory server. If you have smaller customers out there who don't have such a setup and you don't want the hassle of setting up a Radius server, we do have built-in user management as part of the Nebula Cloud. We've got our own database there that can be used for things such as MAC filtering, for providing 802.1x authentication, for doing dynamic pre-shared key, etc., using our own cloud-hosted database. So when it comes to VPNs, we make it pretty simple for you. So if you're trying to connect different offices together, it's really easy to go into the Nebula interface, choose the sites that you want to connect together, choose the topology that you want to use, and then we'll take care of all the complex setup that goes on in the back end to make those connections work. We also provide L2 TP VPN connections as well. So some of the awards we've won over the last few years, most of these have been in Europe. These include Channel Pro giving us the SMB All-Star Award, Network Computing Awards. We were given the Best Cloud-Based Solution of the Year back in 2021, IT Pro's Editor's Choice. And in addition to the Nebula web interface, we do have a mobile app for your Android or iOS devices. Now, these are not full management of your networks. The primary purpose of the mobile app has been for the remote installers, so you can go out there, easily scan those QR codes to assign products to a customer's network or remove products from a customer's network if you're swapping out some hardware. But it does give you the ability to go in there and see the status of all of your customers and their networks. It does give you the ability to change some basic settings, as well as the ability to get notifications when, for instance, devices go offline. So right now with Nebula, we support over 80 different devices that can be managed through the Nebula Cloud. So in the early days when we were doing Nebula, we sort of followed the Cisco Meraki business strategy, which was to have one line of products that were your traditional management and then another line of products that were cloud managed. A few years back, we decided that we no longer wanted to do that. We wanted to simplify things, so that's what we've done. So at this point, you can use one piece of hardware and you can use it standalone or you can use it cloud managed. So this allows you to standardize on certain models of product that you like and be able to use them whether or not it's a cloud managed network or not. So when you're looking at our products, the term you want to look for is Nebula Flex. So anything that is labeled Nebula Flex is going to work either standalone, your traditional CLI or GUI management directly with the device, or can be put into cloud mode. Now, one key thing here, when you switch between modes, the configurations are independent of each other, and in some cases, the feature implementations are different between the two different modes. So that's something to keep in mind. You don't want to be constantly switching back and forth between modes. And you will also see products labeled Nebula Flex Pro. So we offer some additional licenses that go with Nebula to unlock additional features. The main license we have is our Pro Pack. So devices that are labeled Nebula Flex Pro come bundled with a 1-year Pro Pack license. In the case of access points, these are the devices that you would use if you want to use a local wireless LAN controller, which is built into most of our security appliances these days. So for APs, Nebula Flex Pro means standalone mode, Nebula mode, bundled with 1 year of the Pro Pack, but also the ability to be managed directly by a local wireless LAN controller. So most of the features I've talked to up to this point are free. So Nebula is a free platform. It works with all of our different devices there. There is no limit to the number of devices you can manage with the free version of Nebula. There is no limit to the number of customers you can manage with the free version of Nebula. So it's something that's always there for you. When you want to be able to use cloud management, it's there for you. There are some features that do require an additional license. Those are generally more of our MSP type features and are generally more focused on monitoring and troubleshooting type stuff. The core features of the individual bits of hardware are generally available through the free version of Nebula. So ProPack is going to be probably our main license that most of you are interested in. It's the one that's been with us since the launch of the product, and it essentially unlocks everything, all these extra features. So it includes, for instance, a year's worth of logs being stored in the cloud. It has an audit log. So we actually track the configuration changes that have been made and who made them to help you figure out, as you're going back through and troubleshooting an issue, who might know why something was done the way it was. It unlocks an unlimited number of entries into that cloud hosted database. It gives you an unlimited number of admin accounts. It gives you email alerts, etc. We also, a couple years ago, decided to launch a Plus Pack, which is a much cheaper license here, that just unlocks some of the core features. So this is something that competes more with, say, a Netgear's cloud type offering. So it unlocks email notifications when devices go offline and some other stuff that you can set up notifications for. It unlocks some additional admin accounts and unlocks some additional database entries. And then we've also got a separate license here called the MSP pack. So the core version of Nebula here and these Plus and Pro Pack licenses are tied to hardware. So every device on your customer's network needs to have an active license to be able to enable those licensed features. The MSP pack is different, and the MSP pack is for an admin account. So the MSP pack unlocks some additional features for the admin account that the license has been put on. So some of those features that you get with the MSP pack is it allows you to create admin teams to provide better management of your admin users and to make it easier to be able to add and remove multiple admins from multiple sites. So if you've got a lot of different admins that are going to have access to different sites, it may be something that you would be interested in. It allows you to add your own branding to the Nebula interface. So if you're allowing your customers to log into the Nebula interface to view what's going on, it'll allow you to add your branding to that page and remove our support contact information and put your own support contact information on there. Another cool feature that the MSP pack does unlock is it allows all of your sites to be able to send out email alerts. So generally you need Plus or Pro Pack licenses on your sites to get those email alerts. If you have the MSP pack on your admin account, then all of your sites, even the free version ones, will be able to get those email notifications. And the MSP pack also unlocks a different view that we call the MSP portal, which gives you basically a screen that shows you all of your customers and gives you a quick and easy way to see the status of those networks for all of your customers, all at that same individual page. We'll talk a little bit here about some of the features of some of the different stuff. So on the Wi-Fi side of things, Nebula does support our single-click wireless mesh. So it gives you the ability there to be able to extend your wireless network where you can't run Ethernet cable through a mesh type network from between our wireless access points. The smart mesh functionality also has the ability to be a failover mode. So if you've got an AP that for some reason the Cat5 cable going to it gets severed, it will automatically put itself into mesh mode and connect to another nearby AP to be able to continue providing service in that area until you can fix the hardwired connection. There's nothing that you need to do. You simply go into the Nebula interface, enable mesh, and it takes care of everything else on its own. You don't have to directly configure each individual AP to put it into this mode. And then, of course, on the security side of things, we support WPA2 and WPA3 Enterprise. So you can provide 802.1x authentication to your wireless users. So instead of sharing the same PSK between all your employees, each one gets their own unique username and password to be able to get on there. We also support the industry standards for things like fast roaming and assisted roaming. We also support a cool feature here called dynamic pre-shared key. So this is sort of an in-between security method for wireless users. So some of the feedback, we've gotten over the years is a lot of people don't like to deploy WPA Enterprise because it's hard to set up. There may be issues with timeouts between the users authenticating and the in your authentication server. Just difficulties explaining to your users how to configure their device to be able to connect. So dynamic pre-shared key allows you to use pre-shared keys like your consumer, your home Wi-Fi, where you just have a password, you don't have a username, there's no special settings that you need to go into, but it allows you to assign different passwords for each one of your users still. So this way, if you have an employee that leaves the company, it's very easy to deactivate them from the corporate network, to simply turn off their wireless password without it having to affect your other wireless users. So, if you are running a business, it is really not a good idea for everyone to share one pre-shared key. If you don't want to set up 802.1x, this is a great way of doing it. We include here on the wireless side, we use artificial intelligence and machine learning to monitor your network. So you can enable this and will allow us to automatically in the back end make changes to your wireless configuration to try to improve the quality of the connections of your users based on what we are seeing happen on your wireless network. So now we'll move on here and hit some of the key features here on our switches when it comes to Nebula. So we have the ability here to do what we call vendor-based VLAN. So you can automatically assign devices to a VLAN based on the first few digits of their MAC address. So it's really common to use this, for instance, for voice over IP phones. That's generally coming from a different vendor than anything else. So you just put in the prefix of your VoIP phones, and any port where someone plugs a voice phone into it, it will automatically get assigned the voice VLAN tag for you. We have the ability, depending on the switch here, to detect your PoE connected devices, and we can automatically recover devices which have stalled out and are no longer responsive by power cycling them. So that's a feature that's available on our GS1350 series switches with a ProPack license. We use intelligent PoE, which allows us to free up unused PoE budget, so you can connect more devices onto the same PoE switch than you would using the industry standard way of doing things. We have special reports in there for IPTV, and we use machine learning to be able to identify certain networking issues and give you a heads up of settings that you should perhaps change to improve the quality of connections. To help you with your network and management here, we provide what we call an automatic network topology. We will create a visual map of all of the devices on your network, showing you which devices are downstream from which other devices. So again, it's a handy tool here with the ProPack that allows you to troubleshoot issues. Okay, this device is acting weird. Sometimes you forget, okay, which switch does this go to? Which switch does that backhaul to? This is an easy way for you to be able to visually see what's connected to what. All of our Nebula switches virtually stack, so you can go in and configure ports across multiple switches at the same time. And you've got a real-time view looking at it, showing you, what speed of device is connected to which port, whether or not PoE power is being provided on each of your individual ports. So some other features here, most of these are part of the ProPack. The ability to be able to provide cloud backup and restore of switch configurations. So as you experiment and troubleshoot something, you can always quickly roll back to a previous configuration on your switches. We can do 802.1x authentication, and you have a ACL in there for setting up port and user security on your switches. We have loop guard and DHCP guard to make sure, someone isn't plugging in a router that's providing its own DHCP and hijacking clients on your network. And we make it really easy for you to do stuff here. So you can, for instance, clone your existing switches as you add additional switches. So you don't have to configure each switch independently. You can set up templates, then you can synchronize setting changes across multiple devices. Going on here to the security side of things, these are some different features that we have that do require security licenses. So these are going to be for our various products here. So this is just showing here the USG20W VPN. It provides content filtering, so that's an optional license for those devices. We have secure Wi-Fi, and I've got a slide coming up here, I believe, on the secure Wi-Fi. But secure Wi-Fi basically allows you to pair our access points with one of our security gateways and be able to use that access point as essentially a VPN appliance for your remote workers. You simply send them the access point, and it basically works as a VPN appliance to get them back to the corporate network when they're working. We have our new Connect and Protect licenses. So these are security services that operate independent of the rest of your network. They just work on your access point. So these provide IP reputation-based UTM type services to block malicious websites for your wireless users. So this is something that's really great. If you're coming into a customer's network, they've already got a router from another vendor. They don't want to replace it, or it's provided by their ISP, and it doesn't have those sort of UTM type services. You can simply add the services to your access points to protect those wireless users. And then our USG Flex series has the UTM security licenses to unlock various features such as antivirus, IDP, etc. And then our ATP series, our advanced threat protection models, have the gold security license, which unlocks features like sandboxing, DNS reputation filtering, etc. So again, Connect and Protect is for these smaller offices where you want to protect your wireless users. Sort of the interesting thing on this is these licenses are per device, so per AP. So perhaps you want to provide extra security to your guest users, so you would only apply it to those APs where you maybe have public users coming in and using your network, and you would leave it off of, say, access points back in your warehouse or something like that where end users aren't going to connect. So our security appliances also offer collaborative detection and response for even more additional higher levels of security. And here it's just really easy to set up your gateways here to be able to provide VPN functionality and connectivity between multiple sites. And you can easily synchronize settings between different sites. So you don't have to go in and manually different sites. And usually the changes you're making need to be made across the board. You can do that with our Nebula interface. And then when it comes into remote working, as I talked about before, we've got that secure Wi-Fi functionality. We have the ability to use two-factor authentication in sync with our IPsec VPN and Google Authenticator. We have our VPN orchestrator for making it really easy to set up VPNs between different sites. And then we also have the ability to automatically configure the built-in software on a number of different user devices. So we are able to email out a script that can automatically configure the VPN settings for iOS devices, Macintosh OS devices, and Windows devices. So this is just kind of showing you here how that remote secure Wi-Fi feature works. So basically what we're doing is we're taking this access point, we're linking it to a gateway here, and then we're sending it out to wherever the remote user happens to be. And this becomes essentially a VPN appliance for them. It will broadcast a SSID. And for a user to connect to that SSID, they need to use 802.1x authentication to be able to log in and prove they are someone who should have access. This can be paired with two-factor authentication to lock it down even more, but then allows your users to connect to this work SSID and be able to access everything on their corporate work office, just as if they were sitting in the office itself and not at home or wherever they happen to be. So this is really nice because there's no configuration required. You just give it to them, they plug it into whatever their existing router is they have at home, and it's just going to work. And then when it comes to, security intelligence here, Our security appliances through Nebula easily links over to our Secu Reporter, which is our reporting platform for our security appliances. Makes it really easy to monitor what's going on in your customer site security-wise, identify abnormal behavior, create reports with your own branding on them that you can send to your end users to show them the sort of threats and things that their UTM subscriptions have been protecting them from, etc. And with that, guys, that is our Nebula presentation. A little bit different than the one we've done in the past here, changing things up a little bit today. If you have any questions, send them in with the question and answer interface, and I'll do my best here to answer them. So far, I don't have any questions in here. Just a little heads up for those of you out here. Right now, we are targeting April, I believe, for a new Nebula release, and we are going to be completely changing the GUI itself. We're calling it Nebula 2.0. So this is why, if you've noticed here, for any of you that have been with us for a while, the amount of changes that we've been pushing out to Nebula has slowed down over the last, I don't know, 9 months or so. And that's why we've been working on a new Nebula interface. We're looking to speed up the Nebula interface itself. We're also looking to make things even simpler, smoother, and quicker to do things than what's been in there. So that should be coming, I believe, mid to late next month. And eventually here we'll have a webinar on that where we'll go through some of those changes and let you know what's been different. But now's a great time to be using Nebula. Get in there now and get things ready. Okay, I don't have any questions, so I'm going to go ahead and end today's webinar. Thanks for joining us, guys. I appreciate you turning out. And again, I apologize for starting the webinar late today.